Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to try and bridge what, for many people, feels like a huge gap.
A really big one.
We're talking about the ancient practice of acupuncture and the hyper-modern, high-stakes science of reproductive medicine.
Right.
We've got this whole stack of sources, and they don't just ask if acupuncture helps with fertility. They try to explain how.
That's really the core of it, isn't it? When you sent these over, the goal was to cut through all the noise, to find the specific scientific why.
Exactly.
Why use this therapy for pregnancy support? And we're not just talking about, general stress reduction. That's part of it, sure.
Of course.
But we're going deeper. We're diving into a specific molecular mechanism, one that might explain how a few well-placed needles could fundamentally alter the path to a successful pregnancy.
So our mission today is really to get fluent in this key molecule. It's called nitric oxide, or just NO.
Yeah, NO.
And we want to see how this traditional practice might influence these crucial biological processes, the ones you absolutely need for conception and for carrying a baby to term.
And look, if you thought acupuncture was just about, relaxation or energy flow, the research suggests something way more direct.
Much more direct.
It's being seriously investigated for its ability to influence blood vessel health, specifically how it might kickstart blood vessel remodeling by producing this simple but incredibly powerful gas molecule.
So successful reproduction is, what, a plumbing problem?
At its core, it's fundamentally a plumbing problem.
I love that. Okay, so let's start there. Let's start with that foundational biology. Why is blood flow, or I guess the vascular structure, why is it so high stakes for a pregnancy?
Oh, it's the highest stakes possible. I mean, think about it like this. Pregnancy is the fastest, most critical construction project the human body ever undertakes.
A construction project.
And to feed a growing fetus, the mother's entire circulatory system has to go through these radical, almost instant changes.
How radical are we talking?
We're talking about tripling, sometimes even quadrupling the amount of blood that gets to the uterus.
Wow. That sounds like a city having to instantly triple the size of all its main water pipes without springing a single leak.
That is a perfect analogy. And the primary way the body pulls this off is a process called spiral artery remodeling.
Spiral artery remodeling?
Right. So the spiral arteries are these little coiled blood vessels in the uterine lining. In a healthy pregnancy, they have to undergo this massive restructuring. They have to get much, much wider, and they have to lose their muscle tone so they can't tighten up.
So they become like open channels.
Exactly. Low resistance, high flow channels. If this remodeling is successful, blood flow to the placenta just explodes. And that's essential for delivering oxygen and nutrients, 24/7.
Okay, so if the body fails at this,
Yeah.
this huge vascular construction project,
Yeah.
what happens? What are the consequences we see in the sources?
Well, the consequences are severe because the placenta is basically starved of blood. When that critical remodeling doesn't happen, or it's incomplete, those arteries stay tight and constricted. And that lack of good low-pressure blood flow is linked directly to some of the most serious pregnancy complications.
Such as?
Things like fetal growth restriction, miscarriage, and a big one is preeclampsia.
Preeclampsia. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, that's a really dangerous condition with sudden high blood pressure.
Yeah.
But the root cause in this context is that poor blood flow to the placenta.
Precisely. The restricted flow triggers all this inflammation and forces the mother's body to crank up her blood pressure, trying to just force blood through those narrow vessels.
It's a compensation mechanism that goes wrong.
It goes very wrong. If you want a healthy pregnancy, you must have robust, uninterrupted flow from those remodeled arteries. It's non-negotiable.
So if robust flow is the goal and that remodeling is the process, our K molecule, nitric oxide, must be the solution.
It is the solution. Nitric oxide, NO, is what's called a signaling molecule. It's a gas, but biologically, it's the most powerful natural vasodilator the body makes.
Vasodilator. So it widens blood vessels.
It tells the smooth muscle in the walls of blood vessels to just relax, to open up. It is the molecular signal that makes vasodilation happen. So if you want effective spiral artery remodeling, NO is absolutely central to that process.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. This is where we shift from biology to the actual practice.
Right.
We get that blood flow is critical. We get that NO makes it happen. But how does putting a tiny needle into a specific point on the body make the body release a gas molecule that widens arteries somewhere else? I mean, that feels like a huge leap.
It does sound a bit like magic, but the research points to something called neuromodulation.
Neuromodulation.
The stimulation from that needle isn't just passive. It creates a very specific input signal. That signal travels along neural pathways, and it seems to trigger an increase in the production and release of nitric oxide.
And does that happen right where the needle is?
It could be locally, around the point, or it could be a systemic effect through the autonomic nervous system. The body has these complex feedback loops.
So, to spell it out for everyone listening, the chain reaction is acupuncture stimulation,
Leads to increased nitric oxide release,
which causes enhanced vasodilation.
which means better blood flow to the uterus and the placenta.
And that is the proposed mechanism for how it supports a healthy pregnancy.
And what's important is that it gives you a specific target. It's not just a general, oh, this feels good kind of intervention. It's aimed squarely at improving vascular health.
But hang on, a question just popped into my head. If nitric oxide is the molecule we need, why go through acupuncture at all? Why don't fertility doctors just prescribe, an NO supplement or something?
That is a fantastic question, and it really gets at the complexity of biochemistry.
Okay.
You can take precursors for NO orally, like L-arginine, but the problem is that often causes systemic effects.
Meaning vasodilation everywhere.
Everywhere. And while that can be useful sometimes, you don't necessarily want to cause a major drop in your overall blood pressure. You want the effect targeted. Acupuncture, on the other hand, seems to use the body's own neurological wiring to get a more modulated, maybe more localized, and potentially safer release. It's about letting the body's own control systems do the fine-tuning.
So we're using the nervous system to gently nudge the vascular system in the right direction.
Yeah.
And we actually have studies that support this. Let's get into the sources.
Yes, let's. For example, there was a study in medical acupuncture, I believe it was 2019,
Right.
and it gave us clear physiological measurements. It showed that acupuncture could help reduce systemic blood pressure, but more importantly for this conversation, it directly improved uterine blood flow.
Directly improved it.
Yes, and improving that flow is a direct countermeasure to those constricted arteries we were talking about.
And the data goes even further, right? It's not just about maintaining a pregnancy, but also maybe helping with conception in the first place.
Absolutely. There was a 2016 study in acupuncture and medicine that looked specifically at vascular resistance. Yeah, how hard the blood has to push. They found acupuncture could significantly lower the uterine artery resistance, so the blood flows more easily, more efficiently.
And was that just in the uterus?
No, and this is key. The flow enhancement also improved blood flow to the ovaries. And the thinking there is that better circulation to the ovaries might improve egg quality. So it's beneficial for IVF prep and for natural cycles.
So we've really moved beyond the idea that this is just, psychological aid. This is being studied as a way to create targeted, measurable physiological change.
Exactly. It's being used as a supportive blood flow modulating therapy integrated right into modern fertility protocols.
Okay, so that brings us to the next big piece of this, which is specialization. Because understanding the nitric oxide mechanism is one thing.
Right.
But the sources were really clear that applying this in a clinical setting requires a very high degree of focused expertise. This isn't just general wellness acupuncture.
No, not at all. When you're dealing with the complexities of fertility, general knowledge is it's not going to cut it. A great example from the sources is the Berkley Center for Reproductive Wellness.
Okay.
It was founded way back in 1997 by Mike Berkley. And the sources note he was the first acupuncturist and herbalist in the U.S. to dedicate his entire practice exclusively to reproductive medicine.
Wow, 1997, that's almost 3 decades of just focusing on this one thing.
A quarter of a century. And that kind of volume, that experience, it doesn't just give you general skills. It lets you refine and optimize protocols for very specific situations.
What do you mean?
Well, it allows them to see the subtle differences between, say, a patient preparing for an egg retrieval versus one who needs to support implantation,
Right.
or someone dealing with recurrent loss.
So the approach is tailored.
It's deeply comprehensive. They're combining evidence-informed acupuncture, oftentimes specifically to the IVF cycle, with custom herbal medicine and detailed nutritional guidance. They're stacking therapies that all point to the same goal: optimizing the biological environment.
And what are the specific clinical goals they're targeting? It sounds like they're working on some really tough, intractable challenges.
They absolutely are. The goals listed are highly specialized. They're focused on enhancing IVF success rates, for one, improving egg and sperm quality, increasing endometrial thickness.
Which is the lining needed for implantation.
Right, that cushion. And they're also addressing these really complex, frustrating conditions.
Like what? What are some of those conditions?
Well, they're targeting things like recurrent pregnancy loss, which often has a vascular or immunological piece, polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, where you have all these metabolic and hormonal imbalances, endometriosis, which is about inflammation and scarring, and even for unexplained infertility, where the doctors can't find a clear reason.
They can offer a new angle.
A new angle of attack, yeah.
Mm.
Often by addressing something like suboptimal blood flow that traditional diagnostics might just miss.
So that's the key distinction then. These practitioners aren't working in a silo. The sources really stress that they work daily with reproductive endocrinologists, the actual fertility doctors.
Yes, side by side.
And they only see fertility patients. They're just steeped in this world.
And that level of focus results in this incredibly refined clinical expertise. It's what allows them to get these really remarkable results. The sources said this approach has contributed to thousands of successful pregnancies. And crucially, this includes cases where multiple rounds of conventional IVF alone had failed, over and over.
Which suggests it's providing that missing piece of the puzzle.
Very likely related to that optimized blood flow and maybe reduced systemic stress.
And we can't forget the emotional side of this. The journey that fertility patients are on is immense.
Oh, that holistic element is so critical and so often undervalued. Patient reports in the sources consistently mentioned not just the physical outcomes, but also the compassionate, supportive environment.
A different kind of care.
A different kind of care. When you're facing all that stress, the financial burden, the uncertainty, these centers are providing treatment that addresses the whole person. Body, mind, and spirit. It really positions this as a trusted, complementary step.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this all up. If we had to boil down the science behind acupuncture's role here, the core takeaway for you listening is this strategic ability to modulate the body's chemistry. Specifically, leveraging nitric oxide to ensure that critical blood vessel remodeling happens, giving you robust, life-sustaining blood flow.
It's the scientific bridge. It connects the traditional practice to the modern medical goal of placental perfusion. And while, we always say more research is needed,
Of course.
the existing studies strongly suggest it's a valuable, evidence-backed tool all through this NO-mediated vasodilation. It optimizes the physical space where conception and gestation have to happen.
And this all raises a really interesting final question for you to think about. If an ancient practice like acupuncture can be scientifically validated by its ability to modulate one specific critical molecule, nitric oxide, to achieve a necessary outcome like spiral artery remodeling, what other traditional, culturally rich practices from around the world are just waiting?
Waiting to have their own biochemical mechanisms discovered.
Exactly. Discovered, quantified, and leveraged in modern evidence-based medicine.
It's a powerful thought on the potential for integration. A really powerful thought.
Thank you for joining us for the deep dive. We'll see you next time.